Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. And I'm incredibly excited by today's topic and guest. We're going to be diving deep into AI and how you can make your subscription products show up in both AI search and for agentic commerce. And we're actually going to learn a lot more about the genesis of Subscription Prescription and Autoship Cloud. I'm so excited today to be joined by my partner and really close friend, David Bradley. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And so for a little bit of way of explanation, David lives in Colorado. I live in Salt Lake City. We used to meet when we first started working together, like every month. I was here or you were here, I was there. But the last, I think maybe since we started the podcast, we kind of haven't been doing that as actively. But you were here for a subscription workshop we hosted today, and it was a kind of a no-brainer to have you come on. Yeah. I think what would be really fun is, well, first, I'll set the stage by saying David and I met 6 or 7 years ago, and instantly clicked around marketing, logistics, technology stuff. But there's so many questions I want to set up for you here. But let's just start by saying a little bit more. Share with everybody. Introduce yourself to the audience. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you up to? Anything you'd like to share there first?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, when we met, I've been working in the subscription space, and that's when we met. Pretty much during the pandemic, right? Which is great because it brought a lot of new relationships, a lot of changes for people. And at the time, what I was really trying to work on was working with somebody like yourself who could share the content, the messaging of why e-commerce subscriptions was different than other types of subscriptions, because that didn't seem to be very well understood at the time, and why this was such an important model for e-commerce growth. And look at where we're at now, right? I think what we were sharing at the beginning of the presentation today was there were expectations that this was going to be kind of like the market that fizzled out because people were tired of subscriptions, like for Netflix, things like they use on their Rocket app to cancel. Right. This has not been the case for physical goods subscriptions. The delivery model of subscriptions has exploded, and really proud that we've been able to create Autoship as both something that was at the time just for WooCommerce and now is for Shopify too.
Now, and I like telling people this story. The fun thing about our backgrounds is David has a degree in advertising, but he is a technical and product leader. I have a degree in information systems, and I'm the marketing and content leader. Yeah. So that's always kind of funny. But I think one thing I would love for you to share is the story of the first subscription program you built, the horse program. Could you lay out for me, first of all, set the stage for the year and what the problem was and what you built? Because I was explaining to somebody this today, and if somebody came to me with this problem today, I would still tell them now that that's really, really hard to do. And you did this 10 years ago. So set the stage for us.
Ancient times, yeah. So back in the day, so this would have been about 2010, 2011.
Okay, so even farther than I thought.
Yeah, this is ancient history. I was working with a system called NetSuite. Now, some people still know what NetSuite is. It's an ERP platform. Right. And now they're owned by Oracle, but at the time, they were really trying to get small and medium-sized businesses to use them. And I happened to be working when I was going to school and college at University of Texas, hook 'em horns, right? For an entrepreneur that hired me to do basically email design and marketing, and he had this NetSuite business. And it was the first time I had encountered a business that was being run completely online. And very quickly after that, a friend of mine started a company where they were manufacturing products to be sold to performance horses. So these are whole food, sprouted, organic bars, basically. Very much like you'd see a great human supplement today, but these are for performance horses. Anyway, as I came in to do e-commerce for these guys, it was both, let's get NetSuite set up so we can run the business whole operations because we were producing. Let's get e-com set up so that we can use the website to actually sell directly to customers. And there was a competitor in the space that was just insane called SmartPack, and they had this thing called an Autoship program. And it was so enviable at the time. You go to their website, how are they doing this? Things like that. And as I worked with that team, I explained to them, this is something that is actually a function of business to business purchasing now. it's just a really bad experience.
Right.
So what we did was, instead of trying to use what ERP systems used for auto reordering, we created a website that had inside of it an experience, right? What you would call a subscriber portal today. And we'd say, hey, you use the website to experience the subscription, meaning you can make changes to it, things like that. And the reason this business that sold products to horses really wanted to do it is the same reason a business would want to do it today. Extremely high order values, very premium products, so that typically does very well with customers. And because a lot of people actually manage the nutrition of a horse, they would actively manage these recurring orders, right?
So you had a lot of engagement.
A lot of engagement.
And then what about the complication of the horses not being in the same place for their deliveries every time? Like, that's the one that always kind of blows me away. These horse races, these race horses, performance horses are going to different races, different barns all over the country, potentially all over the world.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point. So there was no appetite to say, we'll eat the shipping cost for these multi-hundred, sometimes thousands of dollars orders that, for, as you said, with these horse owners, they would move around. They'd be in South Florida, they'd be in California, sometimes they'd even be in Europe, right? Because that's this lifestyle of the equestrian, is they move around, and these managers, they're basically like managing an Olympic athlete, essentially. So the nutrition can't be sacrificed. So these auto ship orders that we created as a custom application at the time, and I would end up creating this as a custom solution for other businesses too, through this NetSuite community that was learning how to basically create websites that were connected to the ERP at the time.
Right.
They would all really like this experience, essentially. So this experience in particular would leverage shipping calculation to say, hey, when you change your shipping address, we're going to look up what it costs, right, before we actually update your subscription. Right. At the time, we just called it a scheduled PO. Later, we call it scheduled order.
Right.
Right. And as people would make changes, just like it would in the checkout, it would change on the subscription too. And this made it not just safe, but also protected the margins for the company and allowed the flexibility that made it so that people that managed the nutrition for the horse didn't have any problem. They really weren't cost prohibitive.
Right.
You know, this is, we even surveyed this customer sometimes. If you did worse financially, who would take the hit, you or your horse? And they say, oh, me, absolutely.
The horse is not getting their food cut back, or the quality of care.
So I was very lucky to get to work on this application in custom ways for different businesses, a startup that I worked in specifically at that time, and really get to learn what it's like to have customers who really love the brand, love the product, need the product, and needed a way to manage recurring orders because they cared about getting those orders delivered and make that actually work for the operations of the business too.
And then for everybody listening, watching at home, I mean, we're going to speed forward and maybe compress timelines a little bit. So it's not like the very next day that we met after he built that system, but you know, that vision of logistics and that complications. Because for anybody who's not thinking about this, like if a horse is, you know, you're shipping from, say, Florida to a horse in Florida versus California, those prices change drastically. And if they're in France, can be hundreds of dollars more, right? That's huge to hit the margin. So it's really important to have that solved. I was working as a marketing director at a shipping technology company, writing blogs about shipping. And so I think what's been really fun is like our career and what we've been building is within the bones of Autoship.
Right.
You know, our subscription app is logistics, is understanding delivery. That's where Nextime has come in when I've talked about that. I think that's really fun to see. That's where the confluence of like how we kind of connected and what we've been building. And I think what the continuing vision of how we see Autoship in the subscription space and why we're not necessarily threatened by AI, because AI isn't actually putting a package on your porch yet. We'll see about some robots and stuff in the future. But and so with this episode talking about that journey, I wanted to everybody introduce a little bit more of your background, some of your expertise and your thought, but really the topic here that we're going to talk about today is AI.
Yeah.
And I think right now brands are already thinking about AI discoverability. We just recently heard that OpenAI is going to push back a little bit on not doing the transaction inside the browser. They're going to, if you find a product, they're going to push you to the website to complete the purchase.
This was a fight that Amazon recently had. Yeah.
And so part of that, I think, is the is the complexity involved, but also the pushback on all these platforms that don't want to do it. So the Shopify OpenAI partnership is still there. It's just gonna be a little bit more Shopify's checkout as opposed to OpenAI's checkout. So everybody's worrying about product discoverability, how AI search is going to influence my products. But something that I have not heard anybody else talk about except for you is how do you get a subscription product to show up as the top result in an AI search, or why would an AI agent pick subscriptions instead of something else? So set the stage for us with like the Google shopping stuff, because I think that gives a great deal of context, and then we'll dive into this topic. But that is what we're really going to dive into for some meat and bones here.
Yeah, it's a really important question, I think, because as we see ourselves and other people around us, we're all consumers in that sense, and we are seeing a behavioral shift very, very quickly to where people want to experience the internet, right, through their AI apps. Right. They like their chatbots. It's a funny thing. Before I created Autoship, my first demo was a chatbot for a platform, right? Because I thought this was, I think, 2018. And I thought chatbots were like raging at this time. They were having a moment. That's very close to when ManyChat was launched. Different competitors, Octane AI, things like that. And this concept of AI as a chatbot, it's existed for a while. And I thought for sure back then, I was like, oh, this is where the website dies, and we just go after what we want when we want it, and we're just going to manage things through a chat.
Yeah, think about it, that audience. 2018, we're thinking about, because this is on the QPilot website for years until it got updated, was you could manage your entire subscription order through an SMS message, right? Basically. Just a chat bot basically on your phone or Slack or WhatsApp. And now we're unlocking this idea of like AI doing all of that, and it's 7, 8 years later. So so that's like thinking about ManyChat chatbots in the past of how it's usually conceptualized. So
and then there's the you mentioned the sort of a commerce protocol that's been going on, which it's honestly one of the things I think is really attractive about e-com if you are a technologist or you're a marketer, is that e-commerce data is pretty well defined and structured. Think about SKUs, right? Identifiers, the properties that our Shopify stores have for products and variants. These are pretty well standardized, as you can tell if you manage things like product listing ads on Google, things like that. So, for quite a few years, we've had these models, mostly driven by Google, and now more recently Bing too, simply because of the Microsoft relationship with OpenAI and ChatGPT. But these models were always designed to basically facilitate and streamline how products are discovered, right, through search engines. And as we know, a lot of these search engine models, kind of like AI models are today, they get embedded into like all types of different experiences too. So what's really interesting, I think, about presenting this timeline that's occurred of how long the concept of like subscribe and save and subscription and auto replenishment, right, which predates 2010, predates maybe even 2007 with Amazon Subscribe and Save. There was always this idea of like automated replenishment. That idea was not incorporated into Google's what they call structured data, right? So if you're listing products, if you don't know, right, and you're a marketer and you're listing products on, say, Google Shopping or multi-channels, right, where your products are being listed in other places than your online store, it's your catalog data that's structured in such a way that these machines, I think is the best way to call it, can just consume them programmatically. Right. They know exactly what things are.
And one of the problems for many years was that if you say you wanted to default to the subscribe and save option,
right,
Google would actually reject that option from a Google ad perspective because it couldn't see that was a subscription option. To say, hey, your catalog price for this product is $50. The subscription option's listing it as $35. That's throwing us an error. We're going to only show people to the $50 option because that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Like think about it from the shopper's perspective. You would see a product, but you wouldn't see a subscription, but you might see a subscription offer as a search result because it crawled the page. Right. And the reason I mentioned that is that has been going on for years. And only last year in October, not early last year, late last year, did Google introduce a new property specifically for physical goods that are being bought on a subscription at a subscription price, at a frequency that's being offered. And it's limited, but I think it's an extremely strong sign from a powerhouse like Google that's in control of a lot of ads that are surfacing products and helping people discover products, that physical goods subscriptions are a very important part of commerce. And it is not just an important part, it is how people will actually discover and buy from a company for the first time.
Let's talk about that product discovery piece then. Like let's talk about context, good and bad, or positive or negative context. Like break that down. Like how are AI engines or LLMs or agents, how are they able to decide or see that your product is good for this type of person or this type of problem?
Yeah. So I think it's a really good question, because there's things that we've been doing as brand marketers with our product data, with our catalog data. And there's some things that I think agencies especially and brands are learning they're not doing, right? What a lot of brands I think now are getting right, that are subscription brands that are aware, especially those that maybe work with subscription prescription, because we'll make them aware. If you're listening to this podcast, maybe you're becoming aware, is an explainer page, right? This is a pretty simple concept. A lot of brands have this. It explains the subscription program, what it can do in terms of changes that you can make, things like that. But more importantly, expresses the benefits very clearly of what it means to be an Autoship customer or a subscriber of that brand, right? This is one piece of context that we've seen, especially ChatGPT, always pick up if it makes a reference to a subscription offer that the brand has.
Because again, just for context, and AI agents don't like spending hours on a task. They're trying to find the quickest solution. In case you haven't been working with AI, you'll find that if you tell it to go through 1,000 things, it's going to say, hey, I took a random sampling and found this. And you have to tell it, no, go through the 1,000 things.
Exactly.
So if we're searching a website, one of the very first and easiest things for it to surface is a page that describes your subscribe and save program.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. And it needs to be named exactly the same thing that it's named on product pages and anywhere else your brand expresses it, because it sends a very strong signal quickly to the AI, right? This LLM that's learning about your product, right? For its human, for us, right? Who it's working for, who it's shopping for, essentially. Now, let's come to the other piece. And this is, again, some brands do a great job of this, but there's sort of this agentic element that we're learning is also important in addition to what's been important already. So what's already been important is thinking about that Google shopping era, which is still happening right now, where you have structured data that's provided to Google of your catalog, right? Google essentially has your catalog. It has sort of the options and variations of products that you're offering, right? And it crawls your website too, to verify that if I come here as a human, this is basically how it's presented to the marketer. I should be able to see as a human that these offers are real.
Right.
If there's a sale price, I see a sale price, right? If there's some sort of pre-order, I know it's a pre-order. It can verify what your catalog has expressed, right, to Google in this feed that you're providing it, right? And a lot of brands, I think, have done that work, or they have agencies that do that work for them, or they have apps, right? Shopify itself, I think, is very good at providing that data to those different channels. So are other e-commerce platforms. But what we've learned with subscription, and this has very much been the subscription prescription message to many brands for the last, I'd say, 2 years, is the benefits that are described for that product being purchased on subscription, right, are being essentially reinforced on that product page at an even more granular level than what an explainer page would say, right? Because explainer page is probably not where you're going to sell products. You're going to talk about the subscription program and why it's so beneficial to your subscriber. But on a product page, right, these subscription benefits need to be more granularly described as for that product and for the customer that uses that particular product or that variation of that product.
Give this as an example.
Yeah, so we used pet food today, right? Because this is a pretty deep thing to talk about, even though it's not necessarily technically that hard to get right if you know your customer and why that your customer likes your product a lot or needs your product a lot, or variations of it. So really good examples of this are done in pet food. Why? Because pets have variations to them that match the products for them. Right. So if you think about the example I used today, I used my dog Louie, right? My AI, in this case, I was using ChatGPT. It already knows that Louie's 9 years old. It already knows that I've ordered a certain type of brand for him. I ordered a Royal Canin for him, and a certain variation and bag size even.
Right.
It's learned this because I've used it to order in the past, right? It's learned this because I've asked it to look for prices before. It's learned this because I've put pictures of Louis into our AIs. Like, this is the relationship people are having with AIs, and I'm certainly not better than anybody.
If AI didn't know any better, I'd think it's one of your kids.
Exactly. I'm just feeding it all the things because I want help. I just want help.
Right.
And our AIs can be really helpful. So it was interesting. So what I showed the audience today, I was like, if I just say, Louis low on dog food, help me.
Right.
Immediately, what's being returned are these very specific variations from companies that are doing this very well today. And I was using PetSmart and Chewy. No surprise, these are two companies that have been challengers and leaders in this concept of automatic replenishment, subscribe and save. Both of them use the term Autoship now, because not just because I like to toot the horn Autoship, because our Shopify and our WooCommerce app are called Autoship, but because people understand that that's the recurring delivery model.
You get it when you need it.
Very easily. And AI understands this implicitly, like very quickly. So they have their Autoship explainer page, and then the products that are actually showing up as results when I was saying, help me get more dog food for Louis, right, are already tailored. Now, what was interesting to show the audience is, how is that possible, right? Because when a human goes to the page, we might experience it as, oh, we need to click this, and answer some questions, right, in order for me to know which variation of dog food David's supposed to get. And this is not a reorder scenario per se. It's just, I need more of something.
Go find this.
Go get it.
Find me something.
Right. And what they've done very well, both of them, because they compete with each other viciously. If you notice this on ChatGPT, you'll see PetSmart responses, you'll see Chewy responses very regularly. So they're both very, very good at this, is they have structured data in these product pages, not just their product pages, also their results pages, these categories of products, right? And everything enables an AI very quickly to configure the variations that match best my Louis. Basically.
Louis, French Bulldog.
Yep.
9 years old.
Yep.
And has, say, maybe needs something that's easier on a digestion or maybe more fiber rich for an older dog.
Exactly.
So that context is built into those product descriptions, into that catalog, so that AI can see that to answer that question. But you also brought up something really interesting about negative things. So like an example for Louis would be, this is not for puppies.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. This has been a tactic that has been very important in paid advertising, right? Is negative keywords, right? Things that help refine understanding for basically models, right? If we're talking about like our paid ad engines and things like that, to try to reach people more effectively. Just think about this in reverse. We're basically just flipping it with AI. Now the personalization is on the customer side, right? They're not giving you their data. You're giving them the tools to identify your product as quickly as possible because their AI is shopping for them.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Because that was awesome.
Exactly. So we're, as customers with agentic commerce, you are no longer going through and providing your data through things like quizzes, surveys.
Or even just a search on Amazon, on Google.
Searching.
I don't even need to put in like 9-year-old French Bulldog.
Exactly.
I'm not putting in all of that stuff. So all that keyword capture and intent capture that Google's so good at is not there.
It's not there, but the structure is still important. It's just flipped in how it's used, right? So now the brand has to be very good at providing tools that maybe you thought humans wouldn't want to use. Well, human doesn't want to go click all of these little search filters, right, to get these results. But tapping filter options is a nothing burger for an AI agent. That's a nothing. In fact, it's table stakes right now, right? Because as we work on these models for agentic commerce, and there's no agreement right now. In fact, there's competing models. How these big tech companies want to think about, how product listings should evolve in the age of AI, right? But AI is able to very quickly find a deterministic outcome. And the way it is experienced by us as the user of the app is really cool. It's like, I found something great for you. This is going to be this. And it can talk about things that actually matter. Like, do you need this really quickly? I think you do. I'm presenting you options for same-day delivery, in-store pickup, right? I also see I can get better. This is where the subscription comes in. I can get you a better deal, right, for this thing that you want. And this is why the subscription offer might be one of the most central things to focus on in terms of how we structure data, not just so that they can find the right product, but so that they understand that there's a subscription that fits that product very, very well and how it's used.
So I want to double down on that real quick. But as you're speaking, I think of a metaphor. So I want to share this metaphor, and you tell me if I think I'm kind of grasping a lot of this the right way, which is, think about you're going looking for a book, right? And so I could go into bookstores, and normally in the normal process, I might walk up to somebody at the front and say, hey, I'm looking for a sci-fi book for my 14-year-old. He really likes this, this, and this. And then that person is thinking about if they have a book like that or not.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to now with AI, I can walk into a bookstore. I don't have to walk into a bookstore. AI is going to walk into 10 bookstores for me. I don't need to tell AI that the book that I want. I tell it I need a book for Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to find books from bookstores that have categorized all of their bookshelves to have the right type of information available. Because if it's not categorized, AI won't be able to find it and recommend it to me.
Exactly. It's that is a really good analogy for cataloging and what your store really is to an AI.
Okay.
It's not all of these visual representations of offers. It's the cataloged representation
Right.
of them.
Okay. All right. So I have one more question about, well, I want to go a little bit deeper on subscriptions, but I also want to take a little bit of time to make sure, because I think there's some easy ways that that brands could be doing this themselves right now. But so let's talk just a little bit more about this. What makes the subscription option more compelling? Is it within this process of how we're creating context and everything? What else should a brand be thinking about to make that subscription option that much more discoverable or important to an AI?
Yeah. I think this is a really powerful concept to think about as brand marketers. So as we often learn in our subscription apps, in our subscription consulting, there are a relationship between frequency, how a product is used. Some of them are seasonal. Some of them have different sort of ramp up periods. Some of them are really steady Eddie, right? Like air filters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Water delivery, things like that, with very low variability to them. But as we understand why a subscription frequency is part of an offer of how a product is used, AIs pick up on this very, very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they understand that a certain size, like a 12-pound bag of a certain size of food fits a consumption pattern that it already understands for Louis, right? And it can understand that there's a frequency available to it that should be flexible too, by the way, because they understand this as well. They can understand all of the options that you're offering to them. That needs to be reinforced on your explainer pages, right? That these are flexible things that can be managed easily and changed, right? But there is a correlation that needs to be offered, right, by your brand on your product pages, for example, about this product, about the variations that you could get of it, if there are variations that correlate to how it's actually used and purchased. And the benefits, hopefully, are also being aligned to make sense about that. So if we think about it in the pet food context, right, I just mentioned sort of like the size and the breed is going to have an impact on like the quantity and the frequency that you would consume that quantity. So AIs are very good at aligning that right away. You could buy this on a 2-week subscription or a 4-week subscription. Is going to make a lot of sense given how Louis eats, right? And there's benefits being expressed, right? Like, hey, if you're a subscriber, you pay less or nothing for shipping. Hey, if you're a subscriber, you get a better deal over time, or you get perks that go alongside of this. And the perks ideally are also more relevant to that particular dog and dog owner, and more attractive, because as AI picks up on these things, what it does is it drives the recommendation to be even stronger and more powerful. And honestly, as the user of the app, more exciting.
Right.
It like does emojis sometimes. It's very interesting.
So it sounds like it's like making, like similarly how you would try to improve a subscription offer overall.
Yeah.
Like whether those are perks, whether there's a gift with purchase, whether there's progressive discounts or other loyalty points, things like that, is making sure you're investing in that, making sure you're having the benefits align with the right like use of this product.
Yeah.
I would argue any brand that's like, say, selling protein powder that's just trying to sell to everybody is missing out on this opportunity. If you were listening more to your customers and going deeper into who's actually buying from you, you should reinforce that on the product page so that more people can find you through AI.
Yep.
But that's what that sounds like. A lot of what you're saying is making sure those options are happening.
Yeah.
Available.
There's a really interesting tactic, and somebody mentioned something similar today after the talk. They had this idea on their own, but this is a tactic that we've actually seen, which is where what we've seen AI be able to do is like summarize reviews really well.
Right.
Right. And you can actually draw correlations between like positive reviews, who these people are, and what kind of subscriptions, right, they're purchasing. Those are the types of things that can be brought in line in this structured data that you wouldn't put on a website for a human necessarily to read, right? But this frequency option really used a lot by this type of customer or this type of pet in the pet context,
Right.
maybe in the workout context at this stage of training, at this level of performance, right? These are the people who tend to enjoy this product the most at this subscription with this offer at this frequency, and on the negative profiles, right? And I loved it because there was a business owner in the audience today who said, could I create the negative context by looking at bad reviews? I was like, you absolutely could.
I like that.
It's exactly what,
I like that.
I think it's exactly what we're looking for, is a way to say this is who it's not for,
right?
So if people are badly reviewing your product, you can learn from that,
Sure.
just from what they're saying, and you can try to make it better. But you can also accept that these are not your best
when
customers.
somebody leaves a review about like, I tried using this, like I tried mixing my protein powder with my cherry pie recipe, it came out like trash. And you're like, that is not my fault. That is a you problem. But it's like, okay, now I could put in my product page context.
Exactly.
Not good to mix with pie mixes, right?
Yep.
That way AI won't surface that for somebody.
It's a really good example of making it easy
right.
for an AI to understand that, because they do care. Like, is your product really well reviewed, right? They also care about other things that matter a lot to us in our Autoship company.
Right.
Like, when can you deliver it? And do I see evidence that this is a strong delivery promise?
Right.
Because I'm about to buy this from you, and I might even buy a subscription. And the reason I would offer that as an AI to my human, that's why they should do it, is because I know that's good for them. Right. So there's all these elements that if you make it easy, meaning through your structured data, for AI to correlate, like, these strong reviews work best for these people at these frequencies getting these offers. This now helps your best customer discover you.
It's so funny. It's like you have to put out the right dots,
Yep,
so that AI can connect the dots for the right use cases.
Yep.
Okay, so like as a wrap up, as we're kind of thinking about this, like you've set the stage, and there's not a software that's going to do all this. There's no app or in the Shopify store that's like, there are certainly companies that have raised money and that are starting to tackle this problem.
Yeah.
You know, some of our friends at Ecom AI or Get Catalog are currently like working on product page structure and data. But if you're a brand owner right now listening to this, what are a couple of simple things you can do to start prepping your product page, your subscription for AI?
Yeah. So I think AI thankfully exists that also make this easy for maybe brand owners who are doing it on their own or don't have big teams. That, like I said, some teams are just already doing this because this is a tactic that's been used for, search engine optimization, paid search, things like that. But what you can really do is you can work with your AI, for example, and say, look, I'm trying to provide more structured data about who should be buying my product from me so I can send strong signals, right, to ChatGPT and other agents that would be shopping my website, right, that my product should be recommended and listed, right, for my customer. And sometimes if you don't know, the best thing to do is tell it, ask me questions about who my customer is. Now, I'm guessing if you're out there and you've got good reviews, you already have a pretty strong profile, probably even multiple profiles, depending on how many products you sell, right? But as you work through the understanding of what data do I already have that could be structured this way, right? And then implemented in my Shopify store, my WooCommerce store, wherever you're selling from, even your landing pages, right? How can I add this as structured data to my store, right? And it will show you. Now, I could go on into a really boring conversation about how schema.org is the standard by which we provide this to these machine readable documents, right? But the best thing I think brand owners can do, or marketers working for brands can do, is use their AIs, right, to look for this data and then maybe try to come up with the ideas of your own. Just like the founder did today, like, could my reviews be a source for this? Could some of my emails that I get from my best customers, my testimonials, my case studies, things like that, could these be used to be extracted into data that connects those dots for me on my product page? So to answer your question more plainly, though, what you're going to do is you're going to have your explainer page. That's just that's table stakes, right? You're going to add more structured data that correlates who uses which frequency of subscription for your product at each variant. Again, if that's hard for you to do, use AI to try to figure out what that means for your product.
To evaluate it and how to implement that.
Yep. And also to confirm that it's working.
And
right.
Right.
It may not list you right away on ChatGPT, but it can at least confirm, could I be, right? Based on how things are working right now. Because these things are changing quickly.
All the time.
But the structured data does seem to be the mainstay because it works so well for these agents, just like it's
they
worked
want
for the
information.
crawlers.
It's an information feed for them.
Exactly. And I think another thing that you could, most brand owners could do quickly is do something that we saw today in the demonstration of PetSmart and Chewy do, which is how could my catalog, in terms of the categories that my products are presented, be organized in such a way that an agent would understand that it's an auto ship benefit is offered for these products, for example. So what we saw consistently in PetSmart and Chewy is you would see these URLs that are returned of it's like chewy.com/autoship/small breed/ the like long tail SEO. Long tail SEO, I think, has traditionally been very hard for a brand owner, like a solopreneur or even a small team to achieve. This is very easy for an AI to figure out and extrapolate and multiply.
Yeah, this is about building the collections on your Shopify page so that you know, like, hey, these are subscribe and say products or Autoship products. Here's another breakdown. You're essentially building filters into the URL, which in the past didn't matter as much because it's like if Google knew, right, like early days of SEO, that's how you gamed the SEO. But then that quickly got killed. Like it's if AI or if the Google bots know what the content is on that URL, they're kind of tying those together.
Exactly.
But now that collection and that organization is making it easier for AI to know what's what and why it's there and what value can get from it.
Exactly. That site map, as you might call it, if you weren't thinking about it as a catalog, right? This is a very useful tool to AI to figure out what things are what.
Right.
And so we notice that with these really strong brands that are being returned in these results, both of them use this categorical URL structure. And this is something that, again, if you're not sure how, just get some help from your AI. How do I create URLs like this on my Shopify store, right? If you're already a brand marketer, you might already be doing this, but I think this is a simple motion that everybody can do to help. I like the way that you put it, help our agents connect the dots very quickly because of structured data that they love.
I love that. Okay, David, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're dropping absolute AI gems. For anybody listening at home, if you didn't know this already, David and I are business partners. We have a subscription app called Autoship Cloud. We have a delivery solution that integrates with Recharge and Autoship called Nextime, and as well as the subscription prescription agency that we do, and which is the name of this podcast. And I've said before, in case anybody knows, it was David's name for subscription prescription. I can't even remember the lame option that I thought was really cool, and you were like, no, this is way cooler. Let's do this. So I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's such a treat to be here. I love coming to Utah. The community's great, and Matt, you've become a leader of this community. So this is just a lot of fun every time we come out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. All right. That's it. Stay tuned for another dose next week of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.